Okay, I think we've gotten a few minutes past the hour now, and we'll get things started. Welcome everyone to the Solve Climate by 2030 event, hosted by here at the University of South Dakota. It's an event to discuss climate change here in the state, how it will affect us, and more particularly, what we can do as citizens of this state to engage with the issue and make progress towards addressing climate change, transitioning to a more just and sustainable world in the next decade, in the course of the next decade. And I'd like to get started, as is fit and proper, with some acknowledgements and thanks about the event. First, I'd like to, coming from the University of South Dakota, acknowledge and pay respect to the people upon whose ancestral lands our university was built. We owe a debt to those people and are grateful for their contributions to our state. Thankful to the Department of Sustainability and Environment here at USD, as well as the College of Arts and Sciences for sponsoring our event today. And in particular, tip of the hat to Meredith King and Caleb Swanson, two USD students who are been instrumental in getting this event organized. Thank you, Caleb and Meredith. And of course, we wouldn't be having this moment without our three brilliant speakers who will be introduced in a moment and sharing their insights into their experiences and how their lives and actions are intersecting with climate change. More on that in a moment. One final bit of acknowledgement is to Bard College in New York, who are the organizers of this event. This event, South Dakota's contribution, is one of about 120 different conversations taking place both last week and this week, sponsored by universities, but drawing people from all over the regions around that university to discuss climate change and what we can do and to start building some momentum towards addressing this monumental challenge. And they would like to say a few words to us about the scale and scope of the challenge. So my first effort here will be to turn on one of the architects of a short video to kind of talk about the context and the hopes for this program generally and our contributions there too. So my first technical challenge will be to see if we can get this rolling. There we go.
Dialogs. You're participating in one of 125 events held across the planet, including in almost all 50 US states, part of a global project called Solve Climate by 2030. My name is Eben Goodstein, and I'm an economist and director of the graduate programs in sustainability at Bard College in New York, the lead organizer for Solve Climate. This last year has been difficult for everyone. As the world looks forward to recovery from COVID, we are focusing tonight on the most important question facing humanity. What can we do in this year in our regions to help solve climate change while supporting struggling communities that have faced widespread loss of life, economic disaster, and joblessness? Worldwide, from Australia to Kyrgyzstan, from Colombia to Malaysia, and from South Carolina to South Africa, Solve Climate audiences are hearing from local experts and young leaders about concrete steps that can really help nations solve climate change while creating much needed jobs and incomes for everybody. The year 2020 was one of the two hottest years in human history, bringing with it massive forest and grassland fires, record-breaking storms and hurricanes, and relentless rising seas. Solving climate is the challenge which the human species must now face. There's hope for the future. Solutions have continued to advance. This year, China committed to building a carbon neutral economy while the US rejoined the Paris Agreement. Solar, wind, and battery prices continue to fall while major car companies have been rushing to electrify the global fleet. Worldwide, movements for Black Lives Matter and Me Too are leading in bringing much delayed and urgently needed justice to the world. Time is short. We have until 2030, 10 years to solve climate. We can get a lot done in this decade. We have the solutions, but only if we focus the world on climate solutions and justice, and then do the work we have to do in our own cities and regions. For students listening, you are the leaders. Without you, the future we envision will not come. I'm asking tonight for your help. We're going to discover powerful ideas for climate solutions and climate justice and how you can be a part of the solution. But this message must reach beyond those of us who are listening right now. Would you ask all your teachers this week in every subject to make climate a class? The teacher can assign tonight's webinars homework for the students, and then afterwards have a one-class period discussion. And we mean every subject, from art to engineering, psychology to business, dance to chemistry. Teachers don't need to be a climate expert to lead a discussion about climate change. The Solve Climate Project has easy-to-use teachers' guides in nearly every subject and in 3 languages to help teachers make climate relevant to their class. It only takes courage. Don't take no for an answer. Ask them, why not? This is your future. You'll be surprised how many teachers will say yes and thank you. Imagine you, thousands of leaders like you around the world asking their teachers once every school term to make climate a class. That means every term going forwards, hundreds of thousands, millions of students worldwide in their classes talking about climate solutions. COVID has shown how fragile our global economy and society are to extreme events. It's also shown that vulnerable people are facing the hardest, most damaging impacts. This is also true with climate change. Science has made it clear that unchecked, global warming will mean an unending onslaught of extreme events, causing untold suffering for humanity and all creatures, species driven to extinction, a planet of environmental refugees. And yet, in many ways, this is the most exciting time to ever be alive as a human. We have the tools and networks and technologies to rewire the world with clean energy, reimagine the global food system, reinvent transportation, and regenerate forests and grasslands, and be well on our way to solving climate by 2030. Tonight, we will learn how to do this in our own cities, our own towns, our own regions. Thank you for the work you will do to promote climate solutions and a just world.
So indeed, I think there's one point there of Eben's that I'd like to pick up on, and that's it's a wonderful time to be alive if you're interested in solving challenges. And I'm really excited to hear the thoughts, the experiences, the ideas of our 3 speakers today, and what they've seen as the challenges in the spaces of climate change, of justice, of green economic prosperity, and how they have taken action in that space to learn what kind of lessons that we can take forward, both kind of within the state, within the region as a society, as well as what we can take forward individually and how we can work collectively and individually towards addressing climate change and the myriad issues that are connected with climate change. So I'm really thrilled that we have 3 fantastic speakers who have agreed to share their experiences and their insights with us. Henry Redcloud, Mimi Hillenbrand, and Mia Werger are all here to speak with us about their varying experiences and perspectives. I'll leave it largely to themselves to introduce themselves, but before turning the mic over to them, I want to go over just a little bit of the schedule, the protocol for what's going to happen and the balance of time here in this experience. Broadly, we're going to have our 3 speakers. They'll have about 15 minutes or so to share their kind of thoughts and experiences about the Solve Climate space and their actions and perspectives thereon. In between each speakers, there'll be a little bit of time for any clarifying questions that might come up. If you have questions, you're welcome to use the chat feature of Zoom to put them in so that we'll be ready and available to ask them as one speaker ends and the other starts setting up. Or if you prefer, you can speak it out loud. We'll have time for a few clarifying questions in between speakers. At the end, though, there will be time for general discussion, questions for the panels, or general questions for each of the individual speakers as you prefer. So if you have any questions about the content or ideas or any sort of dialogue that you want to strike up, my suggestion is that you save those questions for the last half hour or so, and we can engage those at that time. And there again, you can use the chat function to register your questions, or you can unmute yourself and speak your questions as you see fit. that's it for me. So I think I will hand the mic over to Henry and allow him to introduce himself and speak his mind about these issues. Henry, thank you for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. It's an honor to be here. Would like to say how kola and a wonderful greeting to all the audience. I'm Henry Retcloud. I'm the Executive Director of Retcloud Renewable, where I've been doing solar since 1997. Here on the reservation here in South Dakota. We're located on the Pine Ridge Reservation, the southwest corner of South Dakota. So 1997, I returned home back to the reservation here after spending 14 years on the state side doing structural steel. So I found myself up and down the East Coast, building high rises, bridges, and I found myself out to the West Coast, well, always with home on my mind. So I returned back in 1997 and basically looked around, and we were in dire need. There's hardly any jobs whatsoever. And so I started to look around and thinking, what can we do? What can a guy do to create economic opportunity? And so I reestablished myself on the land, and then started to look at natural build, and then came across solar. So I started researching solar many nights, many days, and then found myself down to NREL down in Colorado, Golden, Colorado, with the National Renewable Energy Laboratory at that time, and seeing what they were doing. And I found it very fascinating. And from there, that same day, I crossed over the mountain there and went, and then my road ended in Carbondale, Colorado, which is the home of Solar Energy International, SEI, and saw what they were doing with technical support, and thought how wonderful that fits in with tribes across the country. Tribes, currently there's 574 federally recognized tribes throughout the country. And so all of their base foundation, language, ceremony, song, dance is all based around the sun. So they have been embracing solar for neons. So, taking this new way and then honoring the old way, and then looking towards, sustainability. So I really had a heartfelt to move forward with this. And 2003, I went and opened the doors to Lakota Solar, creating economic opportunity at that time here, as well as helping natives, homeowners, lessen their moccasin carbon print. So we started out as a manufacturing and the solar hot air furnace. That's what we started out as. And as I met with the tribes, and as soon as I mentioned solar, then they immediately thought of electricity. And there's only 3 types of solar out there, and each of them doing numerous things underneath them. There's, of course, you got the solar hot furnace, you got the solar hot water, then you got solar electric. So I did everything I can, everything partnering up with SEI. SEI, Solar Energy International, has been in existence since 1990. For every solar warrior and warriorette throughout the country, I believe 80,000 plus has went through their program. So across the country, 35 to 40% of current solar installers, manufacturers, business owners has gone through the SEI's training. And so I thought it would be a wonderful idea to bring a training facility here. During the Obama years with the ARA money, I was able to create over 700 jobs through solar furnace, solar electric, battery-based systems, off-grid systems, standalone systems, working with the tribes. So, today, currently pretty excited about the new administration. as there's, I think, $1.9 trillion out there on this Green New Deal. And 40% of that's targeted towards native country. The reason is NREL did a study, and with their study with the 574 federally recognized tribes, they with being able to produce clean energy out of their respected areas, they found that there was a potential of 61 gigs of clean power, may it be solar, wind, hydro. And so, so really excited at this time of the year, this time, 21st century here, pretty excited on where the nation's going and where they understand where they need to be. And pretty excited that, renewable solar is happening so quickly. Prices are coming down, but happening so quickly that we don't have a workforce out there. That's where RCR comes in. We came up with a plan that we basically, I call the T4 program. Our T4 program is Tribal Train the Trainers program. So with that, with the partnership with SEI, 2019, we was able to be a certified solar institute here, offering the NABSAC, the National Certification of Solar here. So 2019, we had 5 graduates. Last year, we had to shut our doors to training throughout the whole year. But it gave us an opportunity to brush up the working labs, the study labs here. We have a wonderful lab area from commercial to microgrids to off-grid standalone system, water pumping systems. We was able to really bring them up where students can come on in and get hands-on training. So pretty excited. All of the things that we do creates an economic base. So jobs. That's the most important thing to me as moving forward in this here Green New Deal. So we're pretty excited here. You can see what we're doing by visiting our page at redcloudrenewable.org. We're going to be hosting our second T4 program starting mid-June. It's a 5-week course, and within the final day of the 5 weeks, then the student takes the national certification and then becomes that solar warrior and warriorette from their respected tribe. They could represent their tribe and start working with this Clean New Deal or creating a business of design, a business of installation, a business of so many things so yeah, we're moving forward here in Indian country. I was chosen during the Obama administration. I was chosen as a White House champion of change in solar deployment. I had lunch with the president. It was pretty nice. I was able to visit the White House and speak with the president, and he's very compassionate about clean energy as well as native peoples, and we had a great, wonderful time there. And so yeah, that's the thing that I stand for, the thing that I envision is we all having jobs in the solar clean energy industry, because it's happening so fast. We need to start, that way we can secure a healthier future, a healthier way of life to That way we can all walk down this green path, so to speak, and just be, you know, they're unified. You know, there's no time to reinvent the wheel or look back in a past. We can't change things, but we can for sure lay a future for us all. We, as any other nation, would like to be Ohinya. We would like to live forever too. So to share our knowledge, share my expertise, share everything that we're doing in Indian country is a healing farm for me. And I work, so we had over 600 students come through our program now. Most, I'm gonna say 99% native have, you know, come through our program. So we're making a way out there for this new way of a new I see somebody's chatting in there, but a new way to move forward. We all need to be on the same path, you know, together. There's no time to reinvent the wheel. We're, you know, past that stage, you know, 30 years ago. We need to all start to partner up and start to move together and share our knowledge, and that way we can ensure that we're Ohinya. We can live forever. So I would like to thank everybody that's on our Zoom presentation. I'm going to leave it there, and if you have any questions, please feel free, and we'll see if we can accommodate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Henry. It was quite a tour and 25 years of experience in the solar industry. I'm sure there's a lot of kind of richness and detail and progress that you've seen that we can get into perhaps towards the back part of the program. We did have one question pop up so far, if others can share. But the question was, is the summer training program only open to Native people?
No, you can go online, you can register and see how we can fit you in. Slots are filling up pretty quick. So you may want to reach out to us. Again, send an email to myself or the email address on our website.
And again, that would be redcloudrenewable.org is the website.
Yes.
That they should.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Meredith right there on the spot with the link. Well done, Meredith. As we transition to Mimi, any other kind of questions right now, clarifications from what Henry had to say just now, anything that people would like to touch on while it's fresh? Well, again, I'm sure we're going to dig into some details and unpack things in a little bit, but we'll save that for the back part of the conversation. Up next, we have Mimi Hillenbrand speaking to us with a beautiful background and I think a wonderful story to tell about her experience as well. Mimi, thank you very much for joining us this early evening or afternoon. The floor is yours. Take it away, please.
Well, Joe, thanks for having me. I am very honored to be here and touched that you would like a bison rancher to be here. Just got to figure out how to get my little PowerPoint up here, so bear with me for a minute. Okay. All right. What am I doing wrong, Joe?
Are you clicking the share screen button down at the bottom?
I got the share screen at the bottom. I got my PowerPoint pulled up.
There,
Right.
this
We're
is
getting
promising.
there.
All right.
Then I just need to hit slideshow, play from start. There. Awesome. Can everybody see that okay then? Okay, great. Anyway, hello, my name's Mimi Hillenbrand and I own the 777 Bison Ranch, which is located in western South Dakota. We have been raising bison since the early 80s and have been practicing holistic management. It's a type of management that embraces the whole. It's not just about raising animals to be fat and happy and be profitable, but it also takes into consideration the soil, the land, the plants, the people. It's looking at the whole thing. And the beautiful thing about holistic management and regenerating grasslands is it is a solution to climate change. Most people don't realize this, but 42% of the world is covered by grasslands. And over half of that is being degraded so rapidly. People don't realize that grasslands actually can sequester more carbon than rainforest because there's so many of it, but they're dwindling, and we really got to take care of them. That's what I'm going to hopefully show you today, what we have done, taken a degraded piece of land and have brought it back, increasing diversity, you know, in building soil health. And all of this helps to sequester carbon, which is what we're all trying to do, is get carbon out of the air and into the ground. And so I encourage all you students who are thinking about getting into ag that you could play a vital part in sequestering carbon if you're into the ag thing. So I got a little PowerPoint here, and I'm going to try to go through it relatively quickly and painlessly, because I know most people hate PowerPoints, and I'm one of those. But I just want to show you what we have done on 777, taking, like I said, degraded. I'm just going to focus on one pasture that was so degraded, and what has happened over 30 plus years of managing this land. And I'm pretty proud of what we've done. So let's get started. And if there's time afterwards, I have a little film that shows our ranch too. But if we don't have time, that's okay. I can give you a link and you can look at it later. So anyway, grazing practices and results of 777. I wanted to include our mission statement just to show you that from the very beginning, we are looking at increasing diversity and taking care of the land. So I'm just going to read this real quick. Our mission is working towards a sustainable environment that promotes and encourages biodiversity, that preserves the integrity of the American bison, that promotes wildlife diversity, and that has a respectful, honest working relationship with the people that work here and in the communities we lived in. I think that really sums up how you have to look at the whole. It's not, if you take one piece out of the cog, it's not going to work. So I think our mission statement is very good. Once again, we're located in southwestern South Dakota, in between the Badlands and the Black Hills. The nearest town is Fairburn, which is teeny, but Rapid City is about 30 miles north. And we run 1,650 bison on 28,000 acres. So here's just a brief history. We switched from cattle in the early 80s, and at the same time, we switched to holistic management. And currently, and over those 30 years, we have increased diversity 3 times over, and it's still continuing to get better. We've actually built topsoil. We've increased our water infiltration. We have plant litter covering the ground, which is what you want. You don't want bare soil, because bare soil does not sequester carbon. And in addition to that, we have a very healthy bison herd that is teaching people around the world about holistic management and regenerative ag. We got a few certifications too that we're proud of, just so you know that we're working with other groups that are interested in regenerating grasslands and sequestering carbon. So we're certified by American Grass-Fed Association. We're certified by Savory Institute, which promotes holistic management and has a hub system around the world. We just got approved with the Audubon Society as bird friendly. So we are building our bird diversity out here. And we just got GAP certified, which is humanely treating animals, which is really great. We're the first bison ranch to get certified in the GAP program. And currently we work with the National Bison Association with their conservation management plan. And the most exciting thing is we are working with Bee Carbon and Soil Carbon Exchange, selling carbon credits. It's actually wonderful to get paid for doing something that you love, you know, and you're helping the environment. So we've had Applied Ecological Service do all of our carbon information, and we are sequestering carbon, and we are doing our part to help climate change. So here are just a couple of healthy little bison calves, and I'm just going to show you what we have done in this one pasture. This just explains what we have done. This is the pasture that we did. It was degraded by traditional overuse, grazing, and we had some prairie dogs in there, so it was really abused, compacted soil. And there's one of the guilty culprits right there. So the data is collected along a transect. We got 5 different transects spread around the ranch so we can collect data to make sure that we are improving our diversity, that we are decreasing, open soil, open ground, excuse me, I'm trying to get ahead of myself. And, but we're only gonna focus on one that I saw the most dramatic changes. Oops. That was our data sheet. This is what our data sheets look like along these transects. We do 100 different points and we collect various things like what happens around, we throw a dart and we try to collect data to make sure that we are increasing diversity. Do we have insects? Is our soil building? And are we overgrazing? Are we undergrazing? Are we utilizing it right? So I love data sheets, so I thought I should share that. So anyway, I'm going to start with, this is the pasture that we are in. This is last year's photo point. And I just want you to notice this, how tall the grass is on those bison's belly. So I just wanted to give you that first little glimpse of what it looks like now to what we started with. So this is what we started with back in 1992. As you can see, there is hardly any plant cover on the right-hand side, and it's hard to tell on the left-hand photo. When you look out over the grasslands, it's really hard to see. It looks like it's productive, but if you look really closely, you can see a lot of bare ground in between the plants. These were the results then, C4 plants and C3 plants. I'm probably a little too technical, but there's warm and cool season plants. And you can see our C4 plants, the warm season plants, were mostly sod plants, and they were kind of running the show at that time. But the big thing here I wanted to show you is, look at the percent bare ground. We had 62% bare ground on that pasture. Very little litter. It was overgrazed by prairie dogs and the previous owner. And the average distance between plants, now it doesn't sound like much, 0.8 inches, but that's an awful lot to be between plants. So from 1992, I take you to 1999, where you can start seeing that bare ground starting to get filled in with some forbs. You can look out across the prairie. It's a little bit more greener. That is a prairie dog hole right there in the front ground. And look at our results are starting to, and just within 7 years, you can see that, you know, our C4 and C3 plants they're changing, but they're kind of holding the same. But look at our bare ground was almost, you know, cut in half pretty quickly. And then our litter cover's increasing, and at the inches went from 0.8 to 0.3, which this was really encouraging to us, that we were actually, you know, increasing forage, increasing plants, the diversity was changing, and we were starting to accomplish our goals. So then in 2009, now you can really start seeing the difference. You can see now you got grasses and forbs on the right-hand side, really filling in that bare soil. And then the one on the left, you can see now you don't see those brown patches quite so easily. And you can see, even though it's hard to tell, but there is diversity in that pasture. And then here again, now we're down to 8% bare ground. Now our C4 and C3 plants are really balancing out, and we have no overgrazed land, and we're down to 0.25 inches between plants. So we're really accomplishing our goals. And then this picture was one of my most favorite pictures ever taken. I'm about 5'2", so you can see how tall the grass is getting after, you know, 92, where there was nothing in there. Now we're down to holding same, about 8% bare ground. We increased a little bit because we were in a drought, and yet we still had beautiful grass coming. And then in 2019, now you can really start seeing the diversity pick up. You got a little sweet clover in there. There is some patches there in the front, but it was also the timing of the year I took this picture. It was a little bit earlier in the season. But here we go, we got 98% litter cover, 2% bare ground, no overgrazing, and we're back down to 0.2 inches between plants. Some of the ideas, you did see that a really big difference in C4 and C3 plants, but and our ideas were maybe it was wet, maybe it was decreased prairie dog, the decrease in prairie dogs, which could be grazing differently, and our grazing, we could have been in there like right before I took the data, but anyway, we're still on the right track. And then I just wanted to show this picture again, where you can see look how tall the grass is on that buffalo. I just think that is so amazing. And you can see some diversity in the foreground, and we are achieving our goals, and it's super exciting. And here it's pretty similar to 2019. You know, we came up just a hair in between, but holding our own. The C4, C3 plants are, you know, leveling out again. So just to show you that just by taking care of your land, you can change what's happening out there. You can take bare soil that is not productive and make it super productive just by managing your land. And this is why we need more young people in agriculture who care, who want to make a change. And you can do it, and you can make a difference. It's not just about not driving cars that cut carbon emissions, but being in ag is really important. This was just a graph I wanted to throw in. It's all 5 of my transects, but you can see when I first started, the distance between plants was all over, and now down here by 2019, I couldn't get 2020 on there. We are starting to level out. So that just shows that all over the ranch, we are making progress in what we have set out to do, and we're continuing to get better every year. So these are just a couple of photos just to show you, because I like buffalo, and I think everybody needs to see more pictures of bison, and these big bulls are always really nice looking. The other cool thing is look at this pile of dung with all these dung beetles. If we didn't have a productive, healthy soil, healthy land, you would not have dung beetles. They are so sensitive to what is happening on the land. And if you're not taking care of it, you will not see these dung beetles. And this photograph I just think is amazing, because you have so many dung beetles instead of just one. And you can see there is a little dung ball there in the lower middle there. But I love that picture. And that was taken in between a gate where we just took the bison through, and they broke that dung pile down in literally less than a day. So that's what you want to see, because they're putting more nutrients back into the ground. And this is just showing what happens with dung too. You know, it's breaking down. You see the diversity that's coming up in it. You know, dung is nutrients, and nutrients grows grass, and nutrients grows soil. It makes soil more healthy and more vibrant and more microbes. And with that, you got more leaves. The more leaves you have and the more diversity, they're like little solar panels too. They're capturing all that sun and carbon and putting it down into the ground and doing just in where it will be used by microbes. So the synopsis is, you know, I'm trying to go pretty quickly because I know these are kind of boring, but you know, we are sustainable and we are regenerating grasslands, and it's amazing what we have done. 30 years sounds like a long time, but when you're trying to bring back something that has been so degraded, it's really a short time. We've actually built 6 inches of topsoil in some places over 30 years. When you think most topsoil takes millennia to grow. So we just have amped it up. So it all has to do with how you manage and what you're really caring for. So we're resilient, we're becoming more sustainable every day. We can survive drought. We don't have to sell animals if we don't need to. We don't need to sell them because of drought, because of the way we're managing the land. So that's encouraging too, because you always hate to have to destock in times of drought. And there's just a wealth of information out there to take care of land. There are so many wonderful organizations right now that we're working with. Even if you don't get into agriculture, there are definitely wonderful organizations like the Savory Institute, for example, that you can work with them to help other people sequester carbon, take care of land, and be teachers. It's just an exciting time, like everybody said, from our introductory film to what Henry said. You know, it's a great time, and there's a lot of innovation going on, and we need more young people out there helping us make these changes. And I'm excited about it. I see a lot of young people who are just wonderful and bringing all kinds of wonderful ideas to the table and care about the land and care about animals. So it's all exciting stuff. Back in 2016, we hired Applied Ecological Services, and they came out and did a full ranch health. It took them a year to look at the whole health of the ranch, and they did our carbon sequestering testing, and it took a year to get all the data back. But everything we were concerned about, we have tripled since we started practicing holistic management, which is really exciting. And we actually published a paper, which if anybody wants a copy of it, I'd be more than happy to send you a copy of it. And we got the Excellence in Range Management in South Dakota in 2019. We're featured in so many podcasts, magazines, and we have been asked to speak at several venues, which is really exciting. And we love talking about the ranch and bison. These are just some references. If anybody needs any kind of a website to go to, like for Savory or holistic management, so they're just wonderful people to work with. And that's the end of my PowerPoint. I just want to thank you all for listening and suffering through that, because I know sometimes it gets a little overwhelming, but I'm not sure how long I've talked so far, but do I have time to show the film or not?
I think you're bang on the mark for your time, which would be great.
Perfect.
We have somebody waiting in the wings who's very concerned about prairie dogs. We'll let them ask their question. I want to thank you very much for your work and for your presentation. It does the heart good to see that green grass or that land change over time. And if that's kind of representative of the work that you've done and the potential there, I think it's marvelous to bear witness to. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we have a couple of questions. Did you get rid of the prairie dogs, and what did they do to degrade the land in the first place?
Well, you never want to eradicate them because they did evolve out here, and bison evolved with prairie dogs. So you never want to get rid of all of them, but sometimes they explode and you have to manage them like anything else. I'm sure everybody has deer issues in their yard, and you have to manage them like anything else. So the government came in and helped us get rid of a portion of them. And what they do is they overgraze. They're worse overgrazers than cattle, because what they need to do is keep the grass super short so they can see their predators. And as you all know, I don't know if everybody's familiar with prairie dogs, but they sit on top of those mounds so they can see their predators. So they clip that grass short, and they just keep cutting it and cutting it. It's like over mowing your lawn. And over time, you lose your diversity, and a lot of the plants die out.
Fantastic, thank you. And we have a second question. Do you have any connection to the Broken Heart Ranch?
If you've read The Bison of Broken Heart, I'm the Mimi in the book who got them started in bison.
Well, there we go. And then perhaps one more question before I talk with Mia. Just in broad strokes, you talk about managing land and how it's yielded such revelation over the 30 years. Kind of in broad strokes, what does a change in the management of land look like? What's the secret sauce that led to that outcome? Or what's the one thing that you did, one of many things I'm sure, that contributed to the regeneration, a bad practice that you shed?
That's a really great question. What we did is we started planning our grazing both for the growing season and the dormant season, and we allowed plants to have time to recover. So we never stayed in one pasture too long. We were moving them depending on the growth rate of the grass. So if you allow a plant time to recover after it's been grazed, it's not going to be overgrazed, and it allows other seeds to come up and regenerate. Good question.
That doesn't sound like the first time you've given that nice thumbnail sketch of that. And I'm sure, again, we'll be able to get into more details in a little bit. But before then, last but not least, we have Mia Werger, who is coming to us from all the way in Alaska. She's out there, I believe, doing a semester away from Augustana University, where she's typically a student, and she is here to talk to us about her perspective and her engagement with climate change. Mia, thank you very much for dialing in all these thousands of miles away and for sharing your thoughts. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you. Let me pull up my presentation real quick. All right, let's hope this works. Cool. So first, thank you all so much for showing up today. I'm just super excited to get to talk about some things that mean so much to me and hopefully also to you. Specifically, my experience doing a little bit of tallgrass prairie restoration in Sioux Falls and what that's taught me about what it looks like to create change in the world. This is especially for you, I think, if you're young, but really if you're anyone who feels like they don't have like a career or a lot of money or a lot of power, but is trying to find out, how can they change the world anyway? So, oops, yeah. There we go. So my name is Mia Werger. I'm a third-year biology student at Augustana University in Sioux Falls. Right now, I'm currently talking to you from Homer, Alaska, like Joe said, where I'm studying climate change and wildlife conservation at the University of Alaska Anchorage. A little bit about me: I love wildlife, I love nature, I just want to be outside all the time. Don't really care why. I have been working for the Conservation Corps of Minnesota and Iowa since I was about 16. That is a really fabulous organization and probably the biggest reason that I really care about the environment and especially about connecting young people with the outdoors. When I'm not working or in school, I really love making vegan food, which is one way that I enjoy of making my consumption a little bit more sustainable. I also really love art and especially nature journaling, so I can kind of show people what the world looks like to me and why I love it so much. So at some point in my life, I think I kind of went from just being a kid who loved nature to someone who's like seriously concerned about the state of our environment and wants to do something about it. And what that looks like has changed a lot over the years. It started with me doing some solo strikes with the Fridays for Future movement, just kind of sitting outside city halls in Sioux Falls and trying to talk to people about the climate. I went on to start speaking out against the Line 3 pipeline and the Keystone XL pipeline in South Dakota and Minnesota. And then eventually I found a group of like-minded people in Sioux Falls, and together we co-founded the group SODAC 350, which is a local group that's affiliated with the international organization 350.org, which is a really amazing organization that does a lot of grassroots activism, advocating for better climate policies and an end to the use of fossil fuels. So if you live anywhere in South Dakota and you want to get more involved with advocating for a safer future, you can find us on Facebook or Instagram at SODAC350 and just send us a message and let us know that you want to get involved and we can find a way for you to help. So the project I'm currently working on and really excited about focusing on today is the Augustana tallgrass prairie restoration plot. And compared to, for example, Mimi's ranch, which is very large, this prairie garden is teeny, just a fraction of an acre, but I think it's a good example of what it looks like to find your voice in your community and how you can make a change. So about 2.5 years ago, I started studying at Augustana and I noticed that there was just a real lack of biodiversity and natural places on campus, and I wanted to do something about that. So in 2019, I applied for a small grant to create a native prairie garden on our campus. And Mimi has already talked a lot about why prairies are great, but I can't pass up a chance to talk a little bit more about why prairies are great. So the first thing that's important to point out is that tallgrass prairies are not farmland. And maybe that seems obvious to some of you, but it's really an important distinction that wheat fields and cornfields are not the same as tallgrass prairies. Prairies were just used to be this incredible, vast ecosystem that had tons of biodiversity and was really important for water retention and healthy soil, which are two things that we're currently struggling with a lot today. Unfortunately, more than 96% of tallgrass prairie has been destroyed, primarily because we either plowed it up to plant fields or because we've suppressed a lot of wildfires. And so in certain places, forests have grown where there used to be prairies. And then the last thing I'm going to say about tallgrass prairie is that restoration, which means reestablishing prairies in places where they've been destroyed, is super desperately needed. It's really important for protecting wildlife habitat for a lot of endangered animals and plants. It also saves a lot of resources. If you have prairies compared to like typical lawn grass on yards or college campuses, it can save a lot of water and you don't have to use pesticides or fertilizers on it. It's also really important for carbon sequestration, for pulling carbon out of the atmosphere and storing it below the soil. Yes, so moving on. In spring 2020, some of my friends and I planted a whole bunch of prairie seeds in little pots in a greenhouse on my campus. And then of course, COVID happened and I ended up moving several hours away from campus, and I was kind of afraid that would be the end of the prairie, but I have some great colleagues and professors and fellow students who pitched in to help plant all those little seeds in the ground. Unfortunately, nothing ever runs as smoothly as you think it will. A lot of those seeds, most of those seeds probably died following summer. The soil was not great. There were a lot of weeds. There wasn't really anybody there to watch out for it because of COVID. But the next fall, we jumped right back in. We tried again. We bought a whole bunch more seeds and we collected some seeds from wild plants. And this spring, the prairie is looking super hopeful. And so it's still very much in transition, still very much a work in progress, but I am super proud of all the people who've been involved and how far it's come in bringing just a little bit of tallgrass prairie back to Sioux Falls. So projects like this, I like to think of as not just being kind of contained in themselves, but they are really stepping stones on a path to a safer planet. And so I'd like to look at kind of 3 different levels of change that happens. And the first is physical changes. So this little prairie we have produces a little bit of food and shelter for wildlife. It has a little bit of an effect on soil and water and air quality. And it helps to combat climate change just a little bit by sequestering some carbon. The second level is the impact on the people who are directly involved with it. So there were students and professors who helped me plant and maintain this garden. And then there are people who read the signs posted about it every time they walk past. And these people are learning firsthand about what tallgrass prairie is and why it matters. The third level is spreading awareness about your project. And I love to use the Prairie Garden as a platform to talk about environmental awareness and restoring natural spaces. Because of this prairie, we've gotten to talk on local news channels and have articles in magazines about the importance of restoring prairie. And so even though it's a really tiny little plot of land, it's had a really big impact on our community. And so one thing I hope you can take away from this framework is, or take away from this presentation, is kind of a framework for what it looks like to create change in your community. And I know from experience how hard it can be to find change that feels meaningful. I've often been kind of torn between feeling like anything I wanted to do was either so small it wouldn't matter, or so big that I couldn't realistically achieve it. So for example, when I was a kid and I kind of first learned about how endangered prairies were, I decided to plant like a tiny little prairie in my backyard. And this thing was like the size of a bathtub. It's teeny. And that was a really fabulous learning experience, but I also knew it wasn't really impacting anyone besides myself. And then on the other hand, you have institutional change, which is great, but as a kid, I didn't have the ability to create a new national park or change agricultural laws. And so I kind of want you to focus on this center sphere that I'll call community change. And that's things that are in our control and they're in our power to carry out, but they impact more people than just ourselves. So the Augustana prairie that I planted is small, and it was within my power to get that started, but it's impacted a lot of people beyond just me in Sioux Falls and even farther. And I think this idea is important. I'm just gonna kind of run through a couple of examples of how this can look. So if something you're concerned about is plastic pollution in our oceans, a personal change would be to bring a reusable bag to the store, which is great. You should definitely do that. But ultimately, the amount of plastic that you produce in your life is probably kind of negligible in the grand scheme of things. And on the other hand, you have kind of institutional change, like passing laws completely banning plastic bags from the whole region, which would be a good solution, but might seem a little out of your reach right now. So then a community level change might be something like going to a local business owner and asking them to give a reward incentive to shoppers who bring their own bags. And this is something that you're definitely able to at least attempt, but it's also impacting a lot more people than just you. Or another example is maybe you're concerned about how much money our world invests in fossil fuels. And so a personal size solution is moving your personal savings to a fossil-free bank, which is awesome. And I super encourage everyone to do that. But again, the amount of money that you have in the bank is probably really small in the grand scheme of things. So then you have institutional change, like having the government completely stop subsidizing the fossil fuel industry, which is kind of the ultimate goal, but might feel kind of far away. So in the meantime, there are things you can do like joining the Divest Ed organization, which is this really cool organization that helps colleges and universities move their funds out of the fossil fuel industry. And so things they can give you toolkits and resources for campaigning your college to divest itself. And that's something that you have the ability to do in your community, but impacts a lot more than just you. And I've talked about my prairie a little bit and some other things, but I want to leave you with kind of this concrete roadmap, which I have here in this cute little cartoon style, but that's fine. For how you go from being a person who's just aware of problems in the world to a person who's ready to create real positive change. And so the first step is something I think we are maybe all a little too good at, which is seeing problems everywhere. And so here it's important to focus and to find something specific that you care about. And for me, that was noticing a lack of biodiversity on my college campus. And the second step is to be able to articulate the outcome you want to see. And that's really important because if you can't envision the solution you want, you're not going to be able to find a solution to get there. So once you kind of know what you're looking for, you can move on to the third step, which is maybe the most important one and also a super tricky one. Asking yourself, where is your power? Or in other words, what are you actually able to do about this right now? If you want to make change, you have to think bigger than just personal change, but you also need to be realistic. Some examples of kind of community level change like I was talking about before are like campaigning at your school or in your town, or maybe you can create or sell a product or a service that makes the world better, or educate people, or get your hands in the dirt and build a garden like I did. So whatever it is that you care about, figure it out what is in your power to do about it right now. And then the fourth step is kind of what launches you into the realm of a change maker, and that's doing something. So for me, the first step was kind of dealing with the basics. When I was trying to create the prairie garden, I had to get permission to plant that prairie. I had to fill out a small grant application, which I promise can be way easier than it sounds. And then I had to go buy a bag of seeds. Or when I was founding SODAC 350, the first step was just sending an email to the international level of the organization, asking them what it would take for me to become a small group leader. And then the fifth step really can't be overstated. Who can you invite to help you? Anything that you want to do to create change has to involve more people than just yourself. And if you're like me, you might feel kind of out of your element in this step. Maybe you'd prefer to just kind of do things yourself. But I promise you that success has to include more people than just you. And it's not only because you might need help, but it's also because when people are included in building something, they feel invested in it and they feel responsible for it. So if you want people to care about the thing that you care about, invite them to help you. And the sixth step happens when you already have a project that you can show the world, and you are now a person with a solution. And so it's really important to then spread your message and tell the world about it. Once I had this, even the basics of the garden established, people really wanted to know about it. I got to talk on the news and write to magazines, and I posted about it on social media, and I heard from people all over who wanted to do the same thing and build prairies in their backyards or in their schools. So once you have something to offer the world, it is super excited to see where you can go with that. So I'll end here, so we have some time for a discussion at the end, but just to leave you with the kind of the key points. Basically, you have power. The trick is finding that sweet spot between focusing on things that are so small they don't really make a difference versus things that are so big they don't feel feasible. You have to figure out where your power actually lies and then pinpoint a solution. Because once you know what it is that you have to offer the world, you will find that the world is so excited to have people like you who are willing to put in the work. Because there's like a ton of scary stuff happening today with climate change and otherwise. And the truth is that there's no silver bullet, right? There's no one thing that's going to solve all these problems. There's only the hard work that real people in real places do. And so if there's one thing I hope you take away from this is just looking at the things that make you upset and asking yourself, what one solution do I have to offer the world? And so if any of you want to contact me afterwards and talk about any ideas you have, or you have questions, or just want to chat, I would love to talk with any of you. You can, here's my email and my Instagram account at the bottom of the page. Feel free to reach out. Yeah, thanks so much for listening.
I guess I was muted. Thank you very much, Mia, for sharing your story. It's a compelling narrative and a framework for thinking about change that individuals can engage with in their own lives or their own spheres of influence. Did anyone have any clarifying questions for Mia before we open things up for a broader discussion among the panel? And one, so you mentioned kind of co-founding SODAC 350. How again was it that people could reach out to get involved with that organization here in the state?
Yeah, you can email us. Here, I'll put the email and all the information in the chat, but basically you can reach us on email or on Facebook or Instagram. You could follow us just to see what we're up to. We've had a little bit of a hiatus because of COVID, but we're definitely ramping up for some more fun stuff happening this year. But you could also just send us a message on our social media accounts and tell us you want to get involved, and we can figure out what the best way to do that is.
Fantastic. Well, again, thank you very much, Henry, Mimi, and Mia for sharing your stories. I wanted to open things up and invite people to ask questions of the panel, all three, or if you have specific questions to direct to members, individual members of the panels, now would be a great time to do it. You're welcome to do that through the chat or to unmute yourself and ask your questions directly. So if anyone has a question they'd like to kick things off with, please do.
Thank you for the presentation. Am I coming through okay? I can see I'm dark, but so I'm Megan Jarko in the Department of Sustainability and Environment. So my question with Mimi and Henry, so both of you clearly were leaders in this long before, I guess, there was, movements in the directions that you've just been out front, before a lot of this was really popular. What role, so you started it, I think, before there was really the societal awareness about some of the environmental needs of the work that you're doing. What roles do you play now in advocacy or outreach, or, now that the situation, the context around what you started with has switched, where do you find yourselves in terms of advocacy?
Do you want to go first, Henry?
Sure. Sure. Thank you for that. Yes, I'll go first. Yeah. Well, the best advertisement or the best thing that you can have your word putting out there is the moccasin telegraph, or for that matter, word of mouth is the best way. But of course, we're using social media. We're reaching out to people. You can find us on Facebook, and through Indian country where we're working, the moccasin telegraph is the best thing. We as well, I travel out and visit tribes. We're currently working with over 50 of the federally recognized tribes on their residential scale renewable energy projects, creating that economic opportunity, working through programs. So I go out and I visit with the tribes throughout the Northern Plains. Showing up, I show up I pull along a mobile solar power plant, a 48-volt system, hook up lights, hook up a lot of things, hook up my PA system, and being able to talk, and I just park out in a parking lot, and people start to gather once they see the panels there, once they see what's going on, all the small tabletop water pumping, tabletop display that we have, and then how they can get involved, how they can bring solar to their community. So face-to-face moccasin telegraph and social media as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry. Well, what we've done, and like Mia, I mean, Mia has the passion and the drive, and that's what it takes. I think if you show your passion and your drive and you really believe in what you're doing from your heart, you know, it's going to catch on. And word of mouth, like Henry said, is huge. And what we started doing was putting on tours and putting on some educational classes, because to us, it's all about education. And we love what we do. So when we do put on these classes, you know, people take it and they'll go to their friends and say, gosh, you need to go check this out. And just word of mouth. And Mia, you did it great. You start with that personal goal, and then how do you reach out to the community? And from there it just builds. And that's kind of, we followed her roadmap actually. And it shows and people love it. And now with social media, it's taking off even more so. And now it's so easy to find people who have the interest that Henry and me and I do. Is, you know, just all you have to do is do a Google search and you're going to find people who are interested in the same thing you are. So ours, same with everybody, word of mouth and educating people.
Nice, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. And Mia, thanks so much for the up and coming push.
A nice complimentary question about, to a degree, word of mouth from Jenny in the chat. She asked, so many people get depressed about climate change and believe that nothing is to be done. What would be your top talking points to change that attitude? This is for everyone, all the speakers.
I can jump on that. I've definitely been there. I think when I kind of first started thinking about climate change, it was mostly just sadness. And that it's an important phase, I think, to go through. Like, we don't necessarily have to snap people out of that phase before they're ready, but it's also like, it's dangerous to get stuck there, and that makes people unhealthy. And I think for me, what helped me get out of that was doing something and feeling like, okay, even if this thing I'm doing isn't going to solve the problem, it's not going to save the world, but like knowing that I'm acting makes me feel like there's a little bit of hope. And something I've noticed is that some people get kind of stuck in this mindset of like, what can I do to help? Oh, I'm just going to like share more bad news on social media. Like, here's another really sad article. Here's another really bad thing that happened. And like, I'm going to spread all this news, and then I feel like I'm helping, but I start to question more whether that actually helps. I think that tends to just get us stuck in a downward spiral. And so what I try to do now is to share solutions. Obviously there's bad stuff and you can't hide that, but instead of focusing on just a bad thing that's happening, look at like, what are the solutions people are finding? Because all over the world, people are finding solutions. And as we put power behind those solutions, we're going to start to get somewhere. So, you know, if I was talking to someone who was really feeling down about it, I guess I'd give them a little bit of time to process that, but also start focusing on like, what can you do about this? What are other people doing about this? And also, what can I and you, whoever that person is, like currently do about it?
I'll jump in on this too. You know, I'm really lucky. Yeah, you just need to be proactive, like Mia said. And right now we work really close hand in hand with the Savory Institute. And yes, everybody is doom and gloom, but there is so many bright, shining stars out there doing wonderful things, like Mia's little Tallgrass Prairie. I mean, it doesn't take much, but working with Savory Institute, they have started a hub system around the world to regenerate grasslands. And they have, I think they're in over 62 countries now. And these hubs educate people into just exactly what we're doing on 777. We're regenerating grasslands. And then that hub reach out to more people, and it's the domino effect. So yes, there's a lot of doom and gloom, but there's also so many wonderful, beautiful things happening right now that I just try not to be negative about it. Like Mia said, Mia, you're such a really wonderful you really get the word out, and I'm really impressed with you. But yeah, I think there's good stuff happening. I'm part of a wonderful network with the Savory Institute, and now working with B Carbon and the Soil Value Exchange. We're reaching out to more people to, if you can regenerate your land, you can, it's horrible to say it, but you can get paid for it for doing what you love. And I think that's going to get more ranchers and farmers on board as a little boost in saying, oh, if I could make some money doing the right thing, then why not? But there's a lot of good stuff happening out there. We just don't hear about it. And I try never to put negative stuff on our social media either, because there's really good people out there doing great things.
Yeah, I find that what I mentioned earlier was, taking a mobile solar power plant and visiting tribes, as well as visiting middle schools. We have, my wife and I, she pretty much leads it, but she's got a solar light in a bucket that charges your cell phone as well, and can be put together in like about 20 minutes. So we go to the schools, we share with the schools, the middle schools, and the students then watch her put it together, then they put it together, and we find that with the students, especially the middle school, they're gonna run on home and they're gonna tell mom and dad what they did. And they're gonna talk about it forever until mom and dad starts to Google, or the student themselves starts to, Google. So students, building awareness, they know what needs to be done. They know what needs to happen. And when they see this basic little light in a bucket that they can build, and the magic, when the switch is, turned on, the magic happens, that's a great way to build awareness, because we, as parents, we love our children. We go to their sports, we go to wherever they're involved in at. And if they're really involved into solar, then the parents are, then the neighbors, the family, the neighbors, the whole community, then comes to that point. So yeah, that's what we do. Thank you.
Henry, that's so amazing what you're doing for Native people. My hat is off to you, and I love your inspiration, and just that you're reaching the young generation and showing them hope and inspiration. My hat is off to you, and good luck. I hope it continues to grow.
Thank you, Amy.
You're here. Any other questions from people in the audience, or their own perspectives that they'd like to share?
I actually had hoped to ask Mimi a brief question. So you've spoken a couple times about selling these carbon offsets. Can you speak to how that kind of fits within your overall business model for the ranch? I'm sorry, I came in a little bit late, and if you've already covered this, I understand, but could you maybe inform me a little bit more?
Well, it's a new thing for me, and I'm just slowly understanding all there is involved with selling carbon credits. My big thing was 5 years ago, I wanted to know how much carbon I was sequestering, because I wanted to know I was doing something right to offset, my travel and what, we just wanted to limit our carbon footprint, or at least offset it. And I'm probably off your question, but I know some people think it's awful to sell carbon credits to, say, Shell or some fossil fuel, or United Airlines or something. But if I can at least offset that, because air travel's not going anywhere, and fossil fuel will always be there, but hopefully in lesser form. But if I can help offset some of that, why not? And if I can get paid for doing something that I love, why not? So I can invest it more into educating more people, and hopefully getting more people to manage holistically and realize the power in preserving prairies and regenerating grasslands. So why not? You know, sometimes people need incentives with the carbon credits. And like I said, I am just learning the ins and outs about this. We just signed on with Soil Value Exchange and B Carbon, and I signed on with them because they really care about the landowner and they care about conservation and regenerative agriculture. So I'm not sure if I really answered your question, but I think there is a benefit there for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you for your perspective.
Well, thank you.
Other questions?
I have a question for Mimi as well. I was curious, so you're talking a lot about your regenerative land practices to help with the grass and the soil, but I'm curious on if you've noticed any benefits to the actual bison themselves, like any change in that or their behavior or health or anything.
Well, you know, we really try hard to protect the integrity of bison. So the way we move our bisons through our pastures kind of mimics how they were hundreds of years ago. So all in all, we're trying to work with bison instead of against bison. And just by doing that, we actually quit haying and feeding hay because we've noticed that it was not really beneficial to them, and they were going through winter not looking that well. And as soon as we quit supplementing hay in the winter, it was amazing how much better they did. I mean, bison didn't evolve with that. So, we were trying to change bison to fit what we thought was right. In reality, we weren't helping them. So by doing what we're doing and kind of looking at their history, we have made them, we're keeping that wild animal in them, and they're healthier and they conceive more calves. So I have to say, from our experience, we've seen only benefits from what we've done. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Henry, a question. You've been in the solar game for about 25 years now. You've probably seen a lot of changes in the technology. The economics certainly have shifted over time, I think, and certainly with electricity have improved, particularly over the last decade or so. I was wondering, as you engage with communities and bring solar, various technologies to them, is there a particular aspect of the technology and its benefits that you find is a kind of a stronger hope for people? Is the cost savings? Is it the kind of more energy autonomy? Is it environmental issues, or can you not really separate these things in your pitch to communities?
It's some of all three. Most is I find in Indian country is climate change. For instance, a few years back during the No Dapo water protector camp, I was there when there was 500 people there. I made 7 trips there, each time returning with solar applications, a workshop which we had on the ground there. And I was back there when there was over 10,000 people there. We had a workshop there, and we had like 200 people coming through, and that was their thing was. And since that time, it's been about, climate change. Of course, savings is good, knowing that they know that with the installation of solar on their rooftop, then they're knowing that they're combating, climate change. And in the process, they're saving some money as well. Climate change is a huge issue here in Indian country. We as, natives, in our language, song and dance, ceremony, it's all spoken around to the earth. So to heal her, that way we can continue to live. That way we can continue to be Ohinya, living forever, So our main focus, tribes here throughout my travels, has been around, climate change. What can we do? How can we do it? So it's, and then knowing that that they're lessening their carbon moccasin print, as well as, you know, saving some money. And then the biggest thing, as well as, you know, climate change, is they can go to work. They can find work and get an outstanding wage, and then work in their own communities. They don't have to leave and go hunt for work and find work, and they can work within their own community. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
I think we've got time for about one more question before I'll lay a last sort of question to the panel. Any other thoughts or any other questions for our speakers today? Then I'll take my moderator's prerogative and wrap it up with one final question for everyone. You know, the part of the mission of this event is to particularly reach out to students, high school level, college level, people who are kind of emerging into positions where they can take more and more actions for the world that they're going to be inheriting. And I wonder, kind of to summarize or crystallize, if you have a particular message or action that you'd like them to take away from what you've spoken about today, or your experiences more generally. Is there a kind of a message or an action that you advise them, prescribe them to take on?
I already kind of mentioned mine briefly, so I can start real quick. But I think my challenge for anybody who wants to sort of make a difference in the world is to like sincerely sit down and ask yourself, what can I do like here now with what I have? Because it's easy to get lost in like, oh, this would be a great thing to do if I had this career and all this power and all this money, or just to feel like you can't do anything. But instead of just focusing on like the problems that exist or what you wish you could do in a different, if you had a different life, like ask yourself, what can I do now? And then just like do the first step. You don't have to do the whole thing, but do something that you can do and then see where it goes, because things take off when you show that you're willing to do some work.
My message is to follow your passion and follow your dreams, because if you believe in your dreams and your passions, nothing is going to stop you. And so hopefully you students out there want to battle climate change, but it's infinite what you can do. So live your truth and live your passion and embrace it, and nothing will stop you, and doors will open. It's what I did, and it's amazing the journey that I've been on. So just believe in yourself and your passion and live your truth.
Yes, I would like to add to all the students, everybody out there, you are the power. You have this device. Get online and do what you can. Google what you're interested in, and you'll receive millions of sites. You know, my grandmother used to say, I would ask her a question, and she would respond by, she would say, well, why don't you ask your grandpa? He thinks he knows everything. And then, so with that, you know, grandparents ain't around anymore. So Grandpa Google, get out there and use him. Use the power that you have in your hand and keep going down the path that you're going, because you are special. You have expertise in something. Just utilize that, find yourself within that, and then start moving down this path. When you start moving down this here path, people are going to take notice. You know, family members are going to take notice. Maybe your friend might say, hey, you did something to yourself, didn't you? You dyed your hair. That's it. That's what you did. But all along, you was rebuilding yourself, and that was your aura that was just beaming around you. And that's why your friend, your relative noticed that change in you. Keep moving forward. Even if you're taking many steps, even if you're just thinking about it, keep moving forward because we're all in this together. So keep moving forward. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, hearty thank you to each of the panelists for spending your time, providing your insight with us this afternoon. I think you've given us all a lot to think about, and so we thank you for that, as well as for the work that you've been doing and will continue to make our state, our planet, a healthier, more resilient, more just place to live in. So I'm sure everyone in the audience to be is will join me in applause, and thank you very much for each of your efforts. Thank you again to the audience for showing up and listening, and I hope you will share and take note of and work with the insights that we have today and carry them with you tonight, tomorrow, and each days of your lives. Thanks to all, and to all a good night.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming. It's great to talk with you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.